There's a lot of stuff written there, to be honest. Please don't get distracted with all that. What I'm going to talk about is going to extend on what was presented in the previous talk. Not that it was planned like that, but actually it gave me a very great way to begin with, and that was starting from anywhere. So we got literally the point that was a lesson from the previous discussion, starting from anywhere. So I thank Fergus for helping me to mention that. Now, what is this project? What we've been doing is actually part of a national program in Italy. So we were working more than 800 researchers working for the future of made in Italy sectors. So and the way that we defined made in Italy there was made in Italy sustainable and circular. So to get there, I work with my colleague, my supervisor, Anna, it's literally the output of the 2 years of work. I will try to stretch it to this 1 hour and maybe even leave some space for questions. And please forgive me if at times it is very academic. I tried very hard to keep it as applied, as practical, and as relevant possible for especially for member companies today. To begin with, I just would like to ask you, what is sustainable innovation? Just want to understand your perspective in the room. What do you understand? What is your perception of sustainable innovation?
I would summarize it as innovations that do not compromise future generations.
Right. Any other definition? All right. I think that already was quite comprehensive. Future generations and everything that it covered. So when we look into literature or wherever sustainable innovation is mentioned, the focus have been around different elements. One is about the environmental focus. So that's the mainstream understanding of sustainable innovation, is how to reduce the environmental, how can we make sure that sustainability, our products don't come at the cost of environment. Another way to make that happen is also looking into, it's been even used in the same place with keywords like eco-design, mostly focused on designing for sustainability, you bringing life cycle impact assessment within the product design. These have been the mainstream understanding of eco-innovation. And again, there have been even more works trying to create more diversity, and that brings the user behavior in sustainable innovation, adds that to the picture, and even then adding some of the more interesting and this definitions of sustainable innovation adds the element of radical, and both to innovation as in terms of transforming products and systems, but also to the business models, transforming business models in a radical way that would actually shift the focus significantly towards sustainability. Among these different definitions, there are two that we found very interesting and kind of brings that diversity into a single picture. So one is called, it was published in the R&D Management Journal. It was called Managing Innovation for Sustainability, and they called their framework as sustainability-led innovation. And that is where actually sustainability is driving innovation. So it's not the organization working around to gain the competitive advantage, for the survival, growth, not just that, but actually bringing sustainability as the key driver behind innovation. And why is that interesting? Because it introduces this, we call them the SLI zones, the sustainability-led innovation zones. So among them, comparing to the level of bringing environmental complexity and innovation complexity to the same picture. And they present zone 1 and 2, what is the business as usual, what we do, trying to do it better, how to bring efficiency into our existing operations, then going towards still operational optimization, and then further towards system building. By system building, involving bringing multiple stakeholders to the innovation process and to the requirements, and looking at innovation, not just sustainable innovation, not just from the environmental perspective, but also shifting focus on products, on values, on the organizational culture, and also in terms of how systematic can we become across different levels of the organization when we are approaching sustainable innovation. And they look into innovation activities around searching in unfamiliar fields, reframing around forming new networks, then around the selection of material, the selection of ideas, and all that is affected when we're looking at the transformation of the entire organizational structure and vision, then how to implement that, and eventually a framework that actually can present a roadmap for future that is driven by sustainability. Another definition, again, the same co-authors that were in the first paper, then they, in another work, they brought together sustainability-oriented education, innovation. So not much about sustainability-led or sustainability-oriented, but what is interesting is that they make it more sophisticated. So they look into start from organizational optimization, and they go towards system building, but with slightly more clear instructions, not answering the what, but answering how can we move towards those objectives that are sustainability focused. So in terms of at the objectives level, going towards more novel products, novel services and business models, and then even going at the system building level to address societal challenge, in engaging with societal and social value in a more systematic way to present sustainable innovation. So this goes back to starting from where we want, in this case for businesses, especially when they are on one end addressing regulatory compliance, on the other end concerned about sustainability, and at the same time need to look at their competitive advantage in the market. Still, even with what we know already, there are certain gaps that are emerging in both these definitions and by what we already know about sustainable innovation. At the conceptual level, it's extremely difficult to balance on one end, what do we want to achieve from in terms of sustainability, and also in terms of a system change, which affects supply chains, it affects value chains, it affects how do we engage with our customers, how do we engage with our different stakeholders, how do we report on ESG performance across all the different dimensions. This change balancing these two is not really addressed when we look into how it is in the current literature. And then even going further at the empirical level, understanding what these different stakeholders want in terms of sustainability, in terms of what do they even expect from the product. There are really empirical methods, there are really methods that can actually bring them together and address the what, why, how questions all in one place. And then even going further, although there've been a lot of work done that actually they analyzes if you are actually focused on sustainability, does it really pay? Do customers buy from you? Does your product sell? So there are several studies that actually confirm that bring into the picture the economic impact and what actually can bring into a company. But how to make your business work in a way that actually it will pay for green, not that whether it will or not, but how will it make that is not addressed. And when we look into these gaps, actually, they question even the very comprehensive definitions of sustainability and sustainable innovation. Among the different approach that actually that tries to operationalize, that tries to address these gaps in sustainable innovation, one of the key framework or frameworks or related frameworks is about sustainable product design. So that is where we bring the focus more specifically at the design of products. How can we design them sustainable? But it already sounds to me that, okay, if it's just a sustainable product design, I'm already losing focus on the different aspirations that I was talking about at the systematic, at a radical system change, a radical shift in terms of organizational structure. And to some extent, sustainable product design, it's presented as a strategic enabler. So if I'm going to have a radical transformation, I need to design products that are sustainable. If I'm trying to design products that addresses my customers' concern, and where if I'm trying to understand their behavior in the design and the use of the product, still to some extent it addresses that. And a common way that sustainable product design is actually presented is as an operational mechanism. How do you operationalize different dimensions in sustainable innovation to make them present for a calculation? Okay, how can I actually operationalize customers' preference? How can I operationalize my impact? How can I operationalize the behavior of consumers? To some extent, this is the most common way that sustainable product design across different frameworks, LCA-driven, eco-design, house for quality, variety of methods that are there. They are doing this job to some extent. Again, there are gaps. So it's still not the end of the story. It still doesn't address that ambitious definition of sustainability, sustainable innovation. So some of the gaps that are there is not even technical. There have been studies when they ask customers across with both sustainable and not sustainable options. It's the common answer. Even if I ask you, you would go with the sustainable option. You would say that I'm actually going to buy a sustainable option, whatever option that is presented to you as sustainable. But when the same customer then went to the market to buy a product, they didn't go for the sustainable option. What did they go for? It's their choice, but definitely it was not what they reported in terms of what their preference that was coming from a survey or from the questionnaire. So that gap is already quite proven in the literature. So this attitude behavior gap, and from the sustainable product design perspective, if there is a gap like that, it's extremely difficult to bring this actually into the product design. Another gap is that there have been other studies that actually looked into, so they brought together different attributes of sustainability in one place, and then they matched it against, they checked it, they investigated this against the customer preference. Out of 82 attributes, customers were concerned only about 15 of 82. At the firm level, I mean, you're trying to improve the product, you're looking into different dimensions, how to, what are the different emissions, how do I make sure that the material that I've used are sustainable, how I'm not damaging impact, how I'm making sure that the use is not affecting society in a negative way. But actually not all those dimensions come when the customer's actual behavior comes into question. Other issues are how do we even understand the customer values, consumption values? How do we operationalize it and then bring it to the product design? So the question is much more complex than a simple design problem, than a simple product attributes choice. What should we bring in our product? And that leads us actually to the questions of our work. So starting from what methods are there? What methods should we use to understand the consumer better? To understand the consumer perception better? Then what are the attributes that consumer is interested about, is concerned of? What are the consumption values there? Like, what are the motivators behind this, a certain choice of a product that we're going to buy? And even further, are there links between product attributes and customer values? Are they linked? How can we link them? And if we can link them, how do we catch patterns? And in fact, that's where AI, in our case, is actually comes to the rescue. But I'm not going to talk about AI for another 15 minutes still. One thing that we borrowed from the customer behavior literature, there is this framework called the means end chain. So what this theory does, unrelated to sustainability, what this theory does, it actually links the product characteristics to the actual perception of customer and what happens to the customer at the psychological level. So it creates this link. It's a famous theory in consumer behavior, and we borrow that to bring this in this context. It's been used once or twice in different papers, but not at the level of sophistication that how irrelevant it is for us. So if I'm saying that fair trade certified or organic beans, that's the product characteristics and attribute. And then in terms of what is that, what is the effect on me? So what's my expectation from it? Supporting farmers, healthier choice. And then at the value level, how does it align with me as a customer? So it's social responsibility, it means social value and personal well-being. We started, so this is the stage one of the work, where we started with a systematic literature review. We looked for keywords around eco-design, sustainable innovation, all in different synonyms that are coming, that have been used in literature, along with consumer preference, customer preference, customer behavior. So variety of keywords that actually focus on customer. And then from there, we screened them, we limited the findings we limited the papers. We focused on the papers that had actually used an empirical method, that have actually tried to investigate the customer's perception. So they weren't talking about it as a theoretical framework, as an analytical framework. They were not reviewing what is there. They were specifically trying to use methods to understand customer in the context of product attributes and in terms of customer values. And we ended up with 39 papers. In the first round, which was in August 2024, we ended with 19 papers. But then we did, because when we submit this to review, they said, no, it's not much, it's not a lot, it's very limited. And then we did the same study after 6 months. It just reminds also how long management review journals take to review your paper. So after 6 months, we got the response, and then we did the same search again, and we ended up with 39 papers. So I'm afraid if I do the same analysis now, I will find another 15, 20 papers more that will actually fit my criteria. Just showing how is this research on this topic is exploding very quickly. These are the in our analysis, the attributes that were actually investigated, tested against customer preference. There's a list of them. So sustainability cues with second order dimensions, circularity, environmental impact assessment, material selection, the packaging and eco labels. What information do we provide around the product at the eco labels level, at the certifications that are there to provide the grade of sustainability, the packaging itself, the design of the packaging, how sustainable the packaging material is, and then around origin, local ecosystems, where is the product made of, any other attributes around the production's place, quality in many places, both in terms of the material, in terms of safety, in terms of performance, in terms of durability, price and economic attributes, services, and design and aesthetic forms. So these are the attributes that were actually not that literature is talking about, but these are the attributes that actually have been investigated against customer preference in the context of sustainable products. Then, now that I see the color is not really good here on this side. So on the values, we found 6 values that have been investigated against customer preference. Functional values in terms of what do we expect from the product, how to perform or what to perform. Green values, social values, how does it affect my social status, and how does it address my societal concerns or concerns around the society. Epistemic values in terms of does it bring novelty when I'm using this product, when I'm even considering this product, is it a source of learning for me? Are there any elements about learning? Conditional value, when I look into a product from a conditional perspective, I will buy this product if the price is this in this range. I will buy this product if I'm going to gift this product for my cousin's birthday, or it's a good product for somebody's for a specific occasion. So these conditional elements and emotional value in terms of how this product makes me feel, or it brings me joy to use this product, or I really liked, when we focus too much on what the product itself brings to us or how it affects us to our emotions. That was a good starting point to map what has been already operationalized, what has been already empirically tested against customer preference in the context of sustainable products. But even more interesting is that these findings across different product categories were not consistent. So not all customers care about the same products in different product contexts. So if you see, for example, in fashion, some of the sustainability QE is a key, has appeared as a critical factor. For example, in everyday food and beverages, if you can see, there's a lot of focus on sustainability now in the research that has been done. The information that we provide around food, around labels, how safe the materials, the ingredients, everything else. But there are also places where we can see that there isn't really much. For example, if I see into mobility and automotives and new electric vehicles, I can see that there's a lot of attributes that are empty. Could be for two reasons. One is that researchers were not interested yet, or they haven't researched on this. So that's an obvious finding. But second is that even in the research has been done, not all these attributes are actually matter at the same time to the same customers, and it's very much product and industry specific. If I look into values, so what actually drives our consumption behavior in terms of sustainable products, again, it is very much product specific. So if I look into fashion, functional value, the utility that I receive from the product, and emotional value, they're primary drivers. But if I look into automotives, functional value again is a prerequisite. So it can't be stressed more than what the customer expect from it. And the green value as to some degree, again, when we talk about the electric vehicles especially, is a primary driver, and the social value. But some of these things, which is what is a key factor or determining factor for us to go with it, some are obvious, but some that are not obvious and are strange to find out. For example, social value. I mean, we are actually consumers, and we care about the society, but there isn't any mention of that in terms of there isn't really proven a test that actually confirms that where we express social concerns in the choice of our products. So again, this could be because it's very difficult to investigate this, to bring this out. Or could it be that, okay, this is not actually a mainstream driver of the choice of products? Again, all these products are sustainable products. Whatever study has investigated this, they were focused on sustainable products. So this actually so the first part of our study, which was the systematic literature review, already gave us some input in terms of, okay, how do we guide sustainable product design in a more systematic way, considering and incorporating consumer behavior strongly there. So we started with bringing bringing values at the beginning, and how can we investigate that from using interviews, using very sophisticated mixed methods, using very sophisticated methods. We need them in order to capture customer values, to really the drivers in our mind behind our consumptions. And there we can convert them through, again, the means and chain framework that I presented earlier, so that we convert that to perceived benefits, and from perceived benefits to choose what attributes actually are there that matter for the customer. And again, using further research, using further other methods, for example, sentiment analysis, to understand around which attributes, which attribute we are concerned more, what makes it happy, where we express positive sentiment. And from there, we go to the customer preference, the design of the product, and then again, coming back to other alterations that can actually help us to refine our product based on the consumer behavior. So this was the output of our systematic literature review. So now we understand to some degree what are the product attributes that we are concerned about, and what are the drivers behind our consumption of those products, and how do those link to the how our internal psychological drivers, how do they lead to product attributes. Then we come to stage 2 of our work. That is where we thought of, okay, now let's start with a case study. And we looked, because we had access to customer reviews on made in Italy products that were made in Italy and labeled as sustainable. So the combination of these two factors, which is quite obvious. So if I'm choosing products that are made in Italy and then sustainable, so there should be a lot of concern around sustainability. And to do that was our expectation. And to do that, we again used the means and chain theory. We used also the sustainability-led innovation framework to be able to use these reviews to guide our work. 11,451 reviews, and then from there we created a platform. We launched a platform. Okay. Yes. So we created a platform for our colleagues. We hired 5 students from University of Padua and University of Brescia. We trained them on the definitions of these attributes from the literature. We guided them, we give them we train them, okay, what does this attribute means, what does this attribute means, what does this customer value means, what about this one, what about this one? And from there, we give them these 11,451 reviews to actually that they had to map in every review which attribute was mentioned, and then separately, again, to do the same job again, to map which values were mentioned in the reviews. We couldn't mix the two because, for example, quality as an attribute and functional value as expectation from the product, they're quite close to each other. So the same person who's going to map the two is going to be very complex for them to decide. Why didn't we do this job with AI? We tested it with different models, generative AI models, giving them the exact definitions. It couldn't really do that mapping for us. It wasn't consistent. It would mix social value with conditional value. Again, there were a lot of challenges there. So again, the first lesson learned that AI is not the answer for everything. We cannot do everything with AI. So there are complexities in understanding concepts that are very consumer behavior specific. And then from how they annotated these reviews, we created our own language model that would do both the sentiment classification and a multi-label classification for product values and product attributes and consumer values. So what it would do that as a web tool, we will give it to Made in Italy industries. So whenever they put their reviews in, they can actually get this very good picture out in terms of what the customers are really concerned of. That was one application, and the application is now live. It is now given for review. It's being reviewed by the Italian government and the European Commission part of that project. And we also we got those reviews that were already annotated by our annotators, and we did analysis on that ourselves. Okay, we said, okay, let's how can we use these reviews, the data that we have? We performed 3 automated text analysis. So one is the multidimensional scaling. It maps together which attributes are mentioned together with which values with each other and across values. Term frequency inverse document frequency. So that gives us more information about the semantics within every attribute. If a customer is talking about quality, how exactly do they talk about it? What are the different semantic patterns around their reviews? And the topic modeling. So that is we use LDA for that. And again, that's using probabilistic language processing methods, using AI to actually give us topics that customers are talking about. So these are the findings of the first part of our work. So something that you might see some things that were shocking to us if you look at the 3D dimension. Green value, sustainability as attribute, stands very far from a mainstream cluster of reviews of what customers were talking about. So functional, quality, origin, service, these are emotional, price, these are very close to each other. Sustainability and green were very far in this picture. And again, it's shocking because the products were sustainable and made in Italy. They were labeled as sustainable. So it was obvious for customers that they're talking about sustainable products. And again, in terms of what are the co-occurrences when they happen together, we found that there's this mainstream cluster of what customers are actually concerned about. They're concerned about quality, price, functional value is driving these decisions, and emotional value. Social value, already as the previous literature review, is out of the picture quite far. Epistemic value, we are still not really looking at sustainable products as that we are enjoying really the novelty of them, that is a source of learning for us as end customers. And then green value. And in the data set, comparing that the quality function is actually 220 times stronger association. Yes? Yeah. 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 In fact, I said even from the systematic literature review, social value doesn't emerge as a critical element here. It's just because it's very difficult to the methods that we use normally in current research. They're very difficult that they really capture the social value aspect from the customer. So it's not that it's not relevant, but that it is difficult to understand from customers' review. Emotional is that if you like to buy that BMW car because it's you're feeling there's a feel of oh no, I have to, yes, so I have to, if he has it, if she has or he has it, why don't I have it? Or if it is because you even like the product, you look at the car every morning in front of their house, you're like, I would like to have that too. Not because it actually creates a utility or whatever, but you're feeling your emotions towards it. The social one is the status. So again, when it's clearly mapped around the status that I expect around me, how my friends perceive me, how yes, a funny thing I realized that I realized from friends of mine in Napoli that they would actually borrow money to buy very expensive cars. But actually they were buying these very expensive cars. They were borrowing money to get those cars. Again, even they were borrowing cars, like, renting for a week, just for that social status. So it is there, but it's very difficult to get that. And in fact, that's why we perform 3 analysis. So this is the conceptual mapping of values and attributes in a customer's mind in a bigger picture. It's just a mapping of these concepts. It's not really about the content of what they're talking about, but where are these concepts located? From there, we go to more in terms of the keywords within every attribute and within every value. I'm looking into semantic patterns. In functional, in terms of quality, there's so many close links between quality and functional values that it corresponds or maintains the expected quality, or how I use it. There are close links, semantic links between green value and sustainability, between price and conditional value, and even within social value. Let's see, yes, gift giving or relationships, mamma, famiglia, amici in Italian. So because the reviews were in Italian, this is the element of it was a gift from my mom, it's friends. So these are the semantic patterns. So here we slightly dive deeper into every attribute and every value. We try to understand it better here. But even more interesting was the results of our topic modeling. So in terms of topic modeling, we didn't train the model on attributes and values. We just gave it what topics are they talking about. We give them all the reviews line by line and say like, okay, can you tell me what are these reviews talking about? What are the topics there? In our first analysis, we actually find 3 topics that they were talking about: product quality, price value relationship, aesthetics, and emotional aspects of the product. So these were very sustainability again doesn't even come in our LDA analysis in the findings. But then we extended the model. We reduced the differences between topics to keep so that we can generate more topics there. And that's where sustainability appeared, because that's the advantage of using LDA analysis. It helps you find the hidden topics that if you're analyzing papers using LDA, if you're analyzing any documents that you're using, it helps you find these hidden topics that are mentioned in your data set in the form of bags of keywords, how these different bags of keywords are used with each other. And there, if I look at sustainability, when it didn't exist yet, when they couldn't find it yet, where is it getting from? So it's 8.7% of all the reviews. Before, product quality was 46, now it's 42. So sustainability was hidden in product quality. Then it was hidden kind of not also in the price value relationship topic, and it was also hidden in the aesthetics and emotional aspects of the product. So what does LDA offer us? It's not anymore about the conceptual mapping anymore. It is about the performance of the products. What customers are actually talking about in terms of like, what does it mean for a customer? So here, it just confirms that this is now when we talk about the functionality of these products, here, it's not as complex as specific attributes and values. It's about topics. And then in the sustainability, in fact, matching it against the average reviews, it has the highest average review. So wherever when we isolate it, even the small cluster that's specifically a concern with sustainability, it has the highest, so there's a highest satisfaction there from the product in terms of average reviews. And then from there, going to what are the sub-themes, again, that's the benefit of using LDA. So even when you perform an LDA analysis on your data sets, you can even go deeper, another level deeper into finding sub-dimensions in your subtopics in the primary topic. So we found material, packaging, environmental impact as topics here, specifically topics, and certifications, in fact, with the highest rating. So what are these findings? And just before I go to what does this mean for us, there is a close link between sustainability cluster of topic and emotional value, 47%. So in the same reviews where the topic was sustainability, if we look at them from the attribute mapping and value mapping, emotional value was the strongest, closest link there. And again, it reminds me of my own experience when I was presenting this paper in a conference in Pisa. So I went to this Airbnb and I entered there, very beautiful Italian architecture inside. In fact, the university was paying for it. So I found a bag of it's called slippers. So they were in a bag. On a bag, there was a handwritten note that I am a reusable bag and I will be used again by other guests. So please put me in a place that is far from dust. When I read this, I was like, oh, I put it somewhere very, very, very safe in a drawer away. If I'm conscious or not, the emotions that it brings in me, maybe I'm feeling good about myself, as not even considering how much plastic that I use in my home when I recycle them. But this one small gesture, what I actually did, actually made me feel good about myself. So the link between sustainability and emotional value actually emerged in this analysis, again, out of all these different analyses. One very small lessons coming. And first, when we found that there's a mainstream cluster of functional quality and a very isolated cluster of sustainability. In this one, we find out the links between sustainability and other attributes. So sustainability cluster in terms of topic and emotional value, sustainability and functional value. So even why they're separate could be because the literature hasn't been able to link the two very well yet. And in fact, that's why our framework is based on literature. So the limitations of literature is our limitations in terms of our finding. But in fact, since the LDA analysis is not coming from the literature, it is just looking for the topics that they're talking about. In this case, it already creates that, okay, in terms of what the product contains, functional aspects and the performance is actually there, even if it is mapped very far in terms of our perception, but actually in terms of the contents of the product, actually they're linked quite close to some degree through emotional value. And there are elements around conditional value, social value. There are some links that exist with them. So what does it mean for us? First, the element of multi-value design. So if we try to integrate emotional value into products, already into green products, already it's helping us in order to get closer to the customer's understanding. The focus on communication, because when we saw the eco labels and certification that were mentioned in reviews, with the highest review, it says that customers are actually very concerned of what information do we provide with the products, and also a segmented approach in terms of understanding where should we functionally, the functionality focus versus price focus versus eco focused, where do they come and how should we use them? And overall about language optimization. But these are the findings of just the LDA analysis. But probably I've gone very far from the sustainability-led innovation that I showed in the beginning. Probably I forgot that already. But let's go back there. So now, if we look without the green arrows, without the green extra information, without them, first of all, we get a picture of how it is conceptualized in the customer's mind. So there is functional quality close to each other, price is there, emotional value, conditional. Then we look into the links, and also then we look into links between functional and quality, between price. And the stronger this line is, it just shows the strength of that relationship. And then we come to understanding, so where is the integration opportunity? Where can we bridge this gap in terms of what we're offering to the customer versus what we expect them to understand or perceive our product as? So one is this link between emotional and sustainability that can actually help us bring these attributes that are isolated to our mainstream picture, where customers are actually concerned about it. And this is concerning, and we need that. In fact, because while functional aspects are within the sustainability, still customers don't perceive it like that. But it just confirms that they are actually, if I'm going for a sustainable product, it looks to me as a cost that I'm compromising on the quality, which is not true, at least in the case of the case study that we had. It was part of it, but it's just how do we get there? How do we make customers realize? So there is this link. And then also in terms of the topics that are there, so we can actually use the small ties that exist there. We can actually then work on them, build on them in order to present our product to our customers. But how can we do that? First, of course, the emotional values. How can we better use them? Second, when we are presenting, it confirms the communication problem here. If we haven't really communicated what the customers want, and we really understood what they want here. So if we add sustainability metrics into the quality, so even if I'm presenting my product as high quality, if I add sustainability metrics in terms of that, okay, actually the materials are sustainable, how they're made, and give more information about the sustainability of the quality, that already brings the two. On the other side, when we talk about sustainability, we actually add performance indicators. So for a customer, when they look into the sustainability of the product, they're not just thinking that, oh, it's coming because I'm concerned about the environment, but actually I actually receive quality from here. And I see specific quality indicators that are attached to the sustainability claim that is done by this producer. And finally, we come to our inclusive framework. So right now, we see if just before I focus on this, going back to the first talk, if this is where we would like to go, if this would be the objective, the sustainable innovation in this case. So what is right now happening is in greenish, where there's this small cluster. Okay, market vulnerability is to avoid. That exist there. There are products that are very bad. They're not even they're not sustainable, and they're not high quality. But to go first to link from greenish to traditional excellence, that mainstream path, to create this link, and across two dimensions, across functional value delivery, the higher the functional value is there, and the higher the environmental value is integrated there, we come to this fourth zone, which aligns with the sustainability-led innovation zone, where actually sustainability is enhancing functionality, where actually green features are actually justifying the premium prices. Something that I didn't mention in the findings, that actually customers are not concerned about the price. When there was sustainability mentioned, the customer didn't really complain about the price. That, oh no, it's high. It is this high. The price is very high. So in fact, by creating this clear integration between quality and sustainability, we can even justify high premium pricing if it costs to the producers more than usual alternatives, and then cover most of the links that we found in the previous slide. Yes. Let's say here the points of availability and functionality. So this is what we recommend. This is what we found in the analysis. So and this is what the finding from our data. But examples to then go from here and provide more case studies of this as a developed solution, we don't have that. This is the point where the university stopped paying me. I'm going to pick it up, of course, at some point. But this is the final contribution that we provide to that sustainability-led innovation by merging functional aspects, the quality and the environmental into one single picture. And from our data set, from the patterns that we saw, through LDA, through multidimensional scaling, to provide, okay, so how can you address these challenges? Other questions? Yes, Anna.
And so the fact that it's sustainable is an enhancement of the proposition. It's just nice. It's great that you've got it as well.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a property, you're not going to buy it in a high price because it's sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. I'd love to see this done in another country, let's say in China.
Yeah.
Where it says high quality and sustainable. And just to see what the reactions are. I mean, I think there's an inherent element about Italian design, Italian performance that people kind of buy into.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether we can stand up in places where work made it.
I think that would depend on what are the objectives, the ambitions of the company who's analyzing there, who is trying to understand the customers. If where we would like to go, if the direction from Made in Italy sector is the slogan Made in Italy sustainable and circular, for them this framework matches very well the findings of the study. But if that ambition is finding you the lowest cost alternative in the market, minimum quality, no mention of sustainability, if that is the ambition of the company, no, this framework doesn't matter. I'm not judging the Made in China here. I'm just very specifically, if that is your objective, that's how you're selling your product, that's where you would like to go.
It's not sustainable to sell products. Right? It means every product takes waste and uses energy. So the best thing is not to consume. That's the ideal sustainable solution. The question, also in this is people are selling their products. It may not be necessary. These are products that are not life-saving. Hospitals. Yeah, these are lifestyle and enjoyment systems in general, but not necessary items. So there's an underlying sustainability question. Is that third Ashmina really necessary?
Yes. Okay. This is then there again. That is product you're referring to, very specific product context, and even there, how our framework helps. If I'm talking about durability, and I understand my customer is not looking at durability as sustainable, already it's confirmed in our analysis that there is this gap between quality and there are also other papers actually that confirm, for example, durability is not sustainable, is more the quality aspect of the product that we're looking at. So if we link durability with the sustainability element in how we present it to the customer and how we communicate it to the customer, that already reduces the choice of buying something else that is actually the material is not that good, then you have to buy another one after every 6 months. Already linking the two kind of solves our problem to some extent, if that's the direction you're going to. Yes, please.
Okay. So one of the other definitions of sustainable isn't about the environment at all. It's about being able to continue at the same level or pace for a long period of time. I'm just thinking from a different kind of industry. So our customers aren't an end supplier who's buying something on Amazon. Typically a lot of concern would be around kind of supply chain security. So how would you apply, or could you apply this framework to earlier down the supply chain?
We thought about I'm going to address this and then we're going to go to the next questions. So we thought about this. How do we apply this framework to the B2B, especially when other businesses are involved immediately in the supply chain rather than end customer? So mapping their needs and then understanding what are the gaps there. So in the case of end customers, we saw the gaps between sustainability, quality, price, sustainability. So there are gaps at the conceptual level. But I think in the case of B2B context, a customer already would already pay attention to the communication, how do you present your product. So knowing where the gaps, it can help them, but this framework itself will not help them because again, it's end consumer based. It will not help a business, but the approach in terms of understanding their requirements from different analytical perspectives, understanding what are the contents of what they're talking about, what is the functional needs that they have, that approach is what can help, in my opinion.
Sorry, I've got 2 more points. So just another thought was, you talked earlier, I think it was towards the beginning of the presentation about how social value didn't come up so much. It's just a comment. It would be really interesting. It's kind of reflective of Anna's point to understand actually if that would become more important or change if you looked in different regions under maybe different political administrations. Like there are some regions where sustainability is massively being shifted away from. So I'm just curious to see if that social factor could almost get people to lean the other way, which is a comment. And then the only other thing is quite specific. On slide 13, you talked about green value. Can you define that and what parameters you considered?
So green value is that I would like, you know, when you ask customers, like, you know, when you give them alternatives, or if you ask them, what would you go through? When it comes from the customer and they say that I would like to buy a product that actually, the material that is used in that product is actually sustainable. I would like to buy a product actually that there is the production integrity in that, the way that it's produced, the emissions around the production. If I'm talking about I want to buy products where I can reuse the packaging because I care about the environment, or I want to reduce waste, for example. So these are the different terms that for us defines green value, environmental value as well. Thank you.
Perhaps one final question, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just check your data source for this? So I think what I took from the slides was that you were basing the assessment on essentially self-reported reviews from customers about things. So obviously it requires the customer to report their perception of each of these factors. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So based on that, I think when we were talking about the kind of the neighbor example, you may end up with a different, I guess, psychological response to whether or not you would report that you bought something because your neighbor had bought one. Yeah. So. Well, there's possibly also a related point about how we go about assessing some of those things as well. So there's a are we happy to report that we bought something because our neighbor bought it? But equally, from a sustainability assessment, are we comfortable with our own assessment about how sustainable something is? We're probably quite comfortable to report whether or not we found something to be good value or good quality because we've built up a level of experience with those things over our life. But we're probably much earlier on in our journey in terms of determining sustainability of things. And perhaps we're also less trusting because we're less able to measure it ourselves, and we're more dependent on the manufacturer telling us this is a sustainable product. So we're perhaps less likely to confirm that in a review. So maybe there's an angle around, well, actually, are we likely to report all of these things in an equal way, all other things being equal?
So it's a valid point, and then probably among other ways of and this from data that we can easily source, not having our own business. You know, if I would be a producer and I would be applying this, it'd be slightly different. But in the case of having access to data that we could use, among them, user-generated content is still the most reliable content to understand the consumer's perception. Why it is the most reliable? Because again, the intention, okay, it's not as clear as to what we're already thinking with ourselves. So it's definitely not speaking that out loud. But to some degree, it is the closest possible to that. Because if I'm writing a review about something and I'm not paid for that, which is also happening, if I'm writing the review, I'm already expressing to some degree, it's voluntary. It's coming from me. It may not exactly present what I'm thinking, but we consider it as the closest possible to what we would say. However, for businesses, we don't recommend this So when you design in our in the product sustainable product design framework, so in the first version, in your first prototype, we in the paper we provide different methods in how to actually engage with your customer, with a group, a small group of your customers, to actually evaluate the first your first alternative to the product. The first version that you present to them, you map their values, you map the attributes that could be, again, sitting with them, performing experiments. So we even suggest even more sophisticated methods in terms of sitting in the room, using eye tracking, using the questions that you ask, using your body language. So nowadays we have access to more sophisticated ways, but that would happen within an experimental design context, and not at the review context. So to really design products that are sustainable and you actually understand your customer better, in that case, of course, we recommend going beyond reviews and actually doing those more sophisticated and, in fact, mixed methods. If you're using an experiment, if you're reading the reviews, if you are monitoring the actual purchase behavior, if you are using the data that is within your CRM in communication with the customer, the variety of sources of information that now, thanks to LDA or other methods using AI, we can actually understand our customers better. That was the end goal. I hope I answered your concern here. Yeah. I think what's essential to get from this is the need, even this discussion, that even sustainable product design is context specific. That's already a lesson getting from this conversation. And then knowing where these attributes mapped, you will still get some information from your customers, even if they're in the UK, because eventually they're paying for it. If you're paying for something, you're going to ask for what you've paid for, because we're not throwing money. If I'm a British customer, or if I'm an Italian customer, or if I'm an American customer, at the end of the day, there is a way that I will actually express. And then the form of communication is different. There are high context communication in the case of Italian language in general, and there's low context in the case of UK and the other examples. So, of course, when understanding consumer behavior, we would have to pay attention to all these attributes before analyzing their requirement.
Yeah.
I perfectly agree with that. That would actually define this as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Najeeb, for the presentation. Thank you all for your comments. Let's give it. And these conversations will continue over lunch right now, and we are going to be back here around